Welcome to Uncommon Sense, where we do our best to make it common again. I'm your host, Adrian Alquist, and Happy New Year, everybody. We just got done with a interesting year, but we have a great way to start it off. We have a great way to start off the new year. I am with Joe Grabowski again. I interviewed you when we talked about distributism a couple months ago, and he's back.
Localism, right? That's
localism. Yeah, great. Yes, I didn't want to impose the new name on you, yeah. but local. We are calling it localism. Yeah, exactly. So he is with his friend and partner in crime, Nikola, and I just met Nikola. Nice to meet you, Nikola.
Nice to meet you too, Adrian. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. They're here with a very exciting announcement and business plan right here. I'm going to let you explain what you guys are doing right now. Joe, how about we start with you?
Sure. So with Nikola and several other people, all from all over the world, I'm the sole American of the group. We have launched a Kickstarter campaign, which is now in its closing days at the beginning of January. It will end on January 7th for a brand new card game featuring Father Brown, the priest detective of Chesterton. And we're very excited about this new game. It's going to be a unique opportunity for people unfamiliar with Chesterton, maybe people who are only familiar with the BBC television show of Father Brown, or people who just like board games, to come together around the tabletop and play an exciting game that we think is not only just a great playing experience, but also a great entree into the wit and wisdom of the character of Father Brown and, of course, of his creator, Chesterton. So
yeah,
I have to say Nikola is the man with the plan. It was his idea from the beginning, and really several years in the making, and I'm sure he'll want to talk about that. But I'm thrilled to be part of the project and very excited to see this thing come to fruition.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're really embodying Chesterton's mentality of being your own boss. And what better way to do that with Chesterton material? So let's assume that people don't, or they're not familiar with Father Brown. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, but we're going to assume that some people are not, or they're just not big Chesterton fans. So could you kind of give a little introduction summary of what Father Brown is?
Nikola, do you want to?
Sure, no problem. Well, basically, Joe did a little introduction to Father Brown. He's the priest detective, character created by G.K. Chesterton in 1911, if I'm not mistaken. I apologize if I missed the year.
Pretty close.
So, pretty close, yeah. Plus or minus a couple of years, but basically at that time, that's the beginning of 20th century, the detective fiction mystery novels were very, very popular. And Chesterton got, let's say, entangled into detective fiction, and he wanted to create, let's say, a character that's totally different from the typical, let's say, Sherlock Holmesian kind of a detective. And he was a good friend with Father John O'Connor, who was a Catholic priest. And he was very impressed with his way of knowing human nature of this, how to say it, he knew how to see into the soul, into the human soul, to go beyond just mere forensics or clues or evidence and that sort of thing. But he knew how the sin functions, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So he incorporated this idea of original detective, original detective with his knowledge of a priest. So basically, he combined let's say, a commonsensical Thomistic kind of priest guy and a detective. So he basically wrote the first story, The Blue Cross, where he introduced the Father Brown character, who's very on the outside he's very naive, he's short, he's stout a little bit, and he seems very, very innocent, very, very innocent. Nobody could suspect that he's a detective.
Right.
But on the inside,
The first collection of books is called The Innocence of Father Brown.
The Innocence of Father Brown, exactly. And from outside, he's very, very innocent, but from the inside, he's very, very very smart. He has wits and wisdom.
Right. Yeah, that's a good summary. If I'm not mistaken, before this, kind of recent before this, Sherlock Holmes comes on the scene, The Mysteries of Sherlock Holmes, and that blew up, and everyone was familiar with the kind of suave, cool detective, and that was kind of the theme for a while. And then Father Brown comes along, or Chesterton comes along with Father Brown, and it's somewhat also revolutionary because now we have this detective who's very humble, who's very small and unassuming, and you don't think much of him, or you wouldn't think much of him if you saw him. He's just this little priest, but then he turns out to be this very good detective. And there's also this, I think there's this paradoxical aspect to the stories where you encounter a lot of people that you wouldn't think that there's anything maybe supernatural about stuff in general, but then all of a sudden this mystery happens, this seemingly supernatural event happens that may be caused by ghosts or something like that, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, it's ghosts, it's demons or something like that. And then Father Brown comes along, who does believe in the spiritual realm, who does believe in something higher, but then he goes and proves that no, this could be totally explained by material components, and it's kind of like a flip on its head. It's a totally paradoxical situation, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe he uses the, let's say, crystal clear logics and the commonsensical to its core, and how to say it. From the first, you think that it's one thing, as I said, it's paradoxical. You think that it is one thing, but at the end it's another thing. But this last thing, the another thing, is more commonsensical, more logical, and more clear than it first seemed. So
yeah, great. Well, so can you go into detail about how you were inspired to make a Father Brown game now, Father Brown card game?
Yeah, that's an interesting story, actually. Very interesting. It was 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago. It was somewhere in September 2017. We were just we were trying to rebrand our Chesterton Society, our Chesterton Club, Croatian Chesterton Club, and I was just becoming the president of our club, and I was thinking, what would be a good way to, I don't know, popularize Chesterton? What could be a good new product to popularize him? And I remember first idea was a game. Game came to my mind, and the first idea was some kind of a fantasy kind of game, like some RPG or Dungeons and Dragons style of game, because I knew that Chesterton wrote a lot about fiction, about fantasy, about legends, fairy tales, and so on. But I was doing a little bit of research on those kind of games, and it seemed too much something I can handle.
Yeah, my brother is working on exactly that, a new RPG that kind of corrects some of the stuff that like D&D is weak at, and that is exactly what we are encountering. So that's exactly right. I totally understand that. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, I like to play games, but I'm not a game master, I'm not a game designer, so I could never do something like that. So basically I was thinking, and then I remember that moment I was at my work. I was at my desk, at my computer. I was doing, I don't know what, but I was thinking about these games and Chesterton inspired games and so on. And it just came into my mind, the Father Brown game, a detective game. And I was thinking about that idea. I was searching some similar games and so on. And then in a month later, I was on a business trip to Hungary. There was this regional EWTN meeting of local partners and affiliates of EWTN. And I was with my friend from Poland there, and he's also Chestertonian. We were talking about Chesterton, what are we doing, what are our ideas? And I said to him, I have this idea for a game, Father Brown kind of game, detective game, and so on. And then he said to me, I have a friend from Poland who's a convert, who worked in IT industry, in the programming. He's also a game master, a game designer. and he converted, and he wants to create games that will not be digital, but they would be board games, and that would gather families around table. And he said to me, you should give him a call. Then he gave me his contact, and a week later, when I returned from Hungary, I wrote to him that email. I still have that email for the archives or something like that. And I said his name is Jacek, and he's our game designer. And I said to him, I have this idea, and it would be great, just returning game and so on. And he said, okay, I like the idea. It's a Chesterton game, mystery game, even better. But currently I'm working on one game, and then I'm going to work on another game. So we'll stay in contact. So in the meantime, they've published one game, The Road to Bethlehem, and another game called Inspirations, and both of them are available at Sophia Institute. And every couple of months, I was writing to him an email every three or 4 months or so, constantly reminding him for the game. And I was really persistent, because I see that he was he wasn't so reluctant to do this game and so on, but I was persistent. I almost let go of this idea, but I was persistent. And last year, somewhere in August, Jacek called me and he said, I finally have the time, and let's do the game. But a couple of months had to pass. I don't know why. I think that's just us Slavs doing business. A lot of time has to pass before we do something. A year ago, we started to work on the game in January 2020. So it was for us, it was a great year, because we started to work on a game. And we started, what will be the name, what will be the mechanics, what's the basic idea behind the game, what to implement in the game, the wit and wisdom of Chesterton, Father Brown, his commonsensical method, the specific atmosphere of a mystery game, of a Father Brown story. And so we were talking, and it went for 3 months. And somewhere in April, we had a basic idea, and we were searching for the illustrator, and then for the designer and so on, graphics designer and so on. Basically, I had my friend, now he's our artist, Matko Andolčić, our Croatian artist. I remembered him because he has a perfect technique he's just perfect with pencil. It's amazing how he draws. And I remembered him, and I just felt that he would be good for this assignment. Although he never worked on illustrations or kind of a graphic design or something like that. But I just knew that he would know how to catch the spirit of Chesterton and the mystery.
That's great.
Mystery story.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I want to clarify for our listeners that the game is not out. The reason we're talking about this right now is because Joe and Nikola are raising money so that they can produce this game, and it would be very helpful if you could contribute to this great idea. And by the way, the society is not sponsored. This is not a sponsored ad. We are not directly benefiting from it, except for the fact that we are getting Chesterton out there, which is part of our mission. But if everyone could go to fatherbrownGame.com, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. And I'll put the Kickstarter link in the YouTube description. And that's the reason we're talking about this right now, and to pique your interest. So I didn't mean to interrupt. If you want to continue.
So basically, we had Matko on our board, and he did some preliminary illustrations, design, and so on. And then I started to do my job. That's basically to involve Chestertonians into this project. So, as I'm the president of the Croatian Chesterton Club, I had some contacts, including your dad, Joe, Joseph Pierce, and other great Chestertonians who live mostly in the United States.
Yeah, and you have an interview with my dad, which I will also put the link in the description.
2 years? No, that's 3 years ago now. That's
3 years ago.
Almost 3 years ago. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
He had a great time in Croatia.
That's good. Yeah, I heard that. But Joe, how did
you can have two if you come to Croatia.
Yeah, so I hope so. I hope I can. Yeah, for sure. But Joe, how did you get roped into this?
Well, it was around mid-year in 2020 when Nikola started reaching out to the Chesterton network around the world, and I was on that email thread because Nikola had me give a talk to along with Joseph Pierce to the Croatian Chesterton Society on the philosophy formerly known as distributism, and we had connected that way, and I saw this email come through about a Father Brown game, and coincidentally, in late 2019, I really started getting into tabletop board games and hosting game nights at my house and
Cool.
having friends over, and great timing, of course, because in 2020 the possibility of such social gatherings became impossible. So.
Yeah.
During 2020, I became very, very much an aficionado of online tabletop gaming, which is sort of a simulation of a tabletop game on Tabletop Simulator. But I saw this come through, and I just thought, well, this is kismet that there's a Chesterton game opportunity. That idea had also started already kicking around in my mind, so I just thought this is very serendipitous that I'm hearing from Nikola on this, and I reached out and said, I would love to be a part of this. I'd love to help you out reaching, an American audience with this, and especially the American Chesterton affiliated audiences, and bring, some of the experience and expertise that I have from, running online campaigns and social media type things to and social marketing to bear on the project. And so I came on board, and since then it's been a real team effort until, working hard on revisions and the game mechanics and getting the artwork finalized, lots of iterations thereof, until finally in December, we were able to launch this Kickstarter campaign. And as you mentioned, Adrian, this is the beginning, not the end of the process for us, because we're a true entrepreneurial startup in the sense a lot of Kickstarter campaigns that you see out there when they launch on Kickstarter, they have reviewers lined up that have already received full copies of the game that they've produced. They've already kind of marketed it in small segments, and now they're just looking to grow their company, as it were. We're really launching from the ground up. And so the way the Kickstarter model works is it's a funding goal that is all or nothing. So either by January 7th, we will raise our $30,000 goal or not. And depending on where we are in the campaign as of the airing, as of the airing of this interview, we might have a ways to go. And so I would just encourage everybody, when you go to Kickstarter, you can, as it were, buy a copy of the game by pledging that way, but you're welcome to pledge more. You can add to that simply as a vote of confidence in what we're doing, and as a pledge of support for a true distributist endeavor, to grow up.
Endeavor.
Yeah, to grow up from a ground up business model. And I think that the potential of this game is huge, that because of the pre-crafted audience of those that maybe only are familiar with Chesterton from his name appearing in the credits of the BBC Father Brown television series, they'll see this and think, oh, I want this on my table, and then just be inundated with Chesterton references in the rule book and everywhere else, and a link to the Chesterton Society on the box and everything else. So yeah, we're really hoping that this can be sort of a guerrilla way of getting Chesterton out there into the culture and serving to convert that culture.
Yeah, and I echo that. We only have a few more days until the Kickstarter campaign ends, so I really encourage you to guys just to go and contribute what you can if you are motivated and you think this is a great idea, which I do. So I have a question. Can you talk at all towards the gameplay of the game? Do you have any details that you can share there?
Yeah, I've been working on that recently in terms of just trying to get people familiar with the gameplay so that it's a little less abstract for them. So The essential mechanisms are that you have to do a kind of matching between two, as it were, zones in the game. The zone that is common to everybody, which is on the table, and then your hand, right? So there are cards in play that are common to everybody, and then the hand that you're holding. And what you're really trying to do is match the evidence that you have in your hand to the evidence that is on the table at what we call the crime scene. And if you can line up all the right evidence in the column of a suspect at the crime scene, then you will be able to pin the crime on that suspect, and you can say that you have solved the crime. So in a way, I mean, if you think about, if anybody is familiar with Texas Hold'em poker, where there's a common flop of cards on the table and everybody has a hand that they're holding and they're trying to match them up, that's a sort of similar dynamic, except instead of, playing cards, we're dealing with evidence cards that have certain associations. So at the crime scene, it might say that a particular suspect at one time did work in South America. You in your hand might be holding a card that references work having been done in Brazil. So now you can connect those, the card in your hand with the evidence at the table on that suspect, because Brazil is in South America. So there's a little bit of deduction that has to be done. If you're totally ignorant of geography, you're going to learn a little bit while you play this game. And then the other main mechanism of gameplay is how one acquires evidence, and that is through a bidding round, which is just that an evidence card is presented to be acquired, and every player has a pile of what are called investigation resources, which are cards of different value that they can basically pledge towards trying to get that evidence card. And whatever you commit to trying to get the card, you're going to lose at the end of the round. So you're kind of gaming, how much can I afford to try to spend to get this? Because then when play progresses to your left, the next player might outbid you, and you've just lost whatever resources you tried to commit to getting that card. So there's a lot of strategy involved in terms of knowing what your resources are, what your limits are to what you can spend. And then finally, the last dynamic that enters into the game is twofold. One is just the element of competition and how you can interfere with other people's evidence and how you can interfere with other people's attempt to acquire all the evidence that they need or make the case that they need. So you can throw red herrings into their investigation that's going to make it more difficult for them to solve the crime. And then finally, one of the inspectors at the table, because all players play in the role of inspectors, might be Flambeau. And this is, for those who aren't Father Brown fans, Flambeau was a famous criminal that is involved in some of the Father Brown stories. I won't spoil anything about his storyline, but in our game, Flambeau is still the arch criminal of Europe. And Flambeau, therefore, is sort of a nemesis for Father Brown, and Flambeau is there to disrupt everybody's investigation and be the traitor at the table while masquerading as a fellow investigator. And so the players will be trying to compete against one another, watching out for Flambeau, and along the way, getting help from Father Brown, who appears in the role of like special cards that allow you to do something that you couldn't otherwise do, or give you particular insight into the crime that propels you forward to being able to win. So that's the basic idea.
Cool. That was really helpful. I'm really bad at geography, but maybe this will be able to.
Yeah, well, you can always keep an atlas at your side.
Yeah. That's really cool though. Have you guys had to do a lot of play testing?
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of actually. We gathered every week over Skype. First of all, we had to go over the rule book and the design, the graphics, the illustration, and so on. So it was a lot of work in different fields, not just game testing. Mm-hmm. But we were working on the game mechanics itself for, let's say, half a year, something like that, because there were trials and errors, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and so there was a lot of work. And it's actually our game designer Jacek he said that it's actually quite remarkable that we've managed to make this game mechanics in half a year. And I must admit that I was hearing again the game mechanics and Joe explaining it to you. I was already excited about. I was already just hearing the mechanics. I was excited about the game. So it was a lot of testing, but I would say that's more than a lot of work and a lot of patience. There was a lot of love toward Chesterton that was implemented into the game and into all of this work here. We really worked with great enthusiasm on this game. And I just want to say this because Joe said how my email found him in the right moment. When he answered my email and he offered his wit and wisdom and help and his marketing experience, I really sense that it was providential, because we really needed somebody like Joe, who's also expert in marketing and basically he's a Estonian who loves board games. I mean that's a rare feature.
That's great. Yeah, I just knew that playtesting is a particular hard thing to do, because there's no. It is trial and error. You can't start with the perfect model. The only way to know how to get better is to just play your own game over and over again until you hate it.
And we did everything over Skype. Yeah, and we did everything over Skype. So that was also it was an international endeavor, and it's very difficult to do some things over digitally over Skype. It's much easier if you gather somewhere and you just people do everything. Right?
No, for sure, yeah. That's really good to hear. Am I missing anything? Is there anything else you want to mention about this venture?
Yeah, if I may, I'd mention two things. Firstly, just even the description that I gave there of the gameplay. If you go to the Kickstarter, you're going to notice that there's two versions that we're issuing. One is the basic game, which I described to you. The other has a completely additional rule set, a second rule set. It's called the deluxe version of the game. So you can play the entire base game from that, but there's also a game board that adds a totally different style of play and totally different aspects of strategy into the game. It's an incredibly rich engine with about 200 cards in the base edition, and then the deluxe has even more. The moving pieces that interact with one another creates almost untold replayability, especially because the personalities of the people at the table will enter so much into the gameplay, while at the same time not being overly complicated, such that only diehard gamers are going to have an entree into this. Even novice gamers are going to have the ability to pick up on this relatively quickly and play. And the second thing I would just mention is another reason that I hope everybody will go and support us is that we have other ideas. So Father Brown Investigations was the original name of the game. We eventually settled on sort of a subtitle. So now it's Father Brown Investigations, The Death of Sir Percy Coldwell. And that's because Father Brown Investigations, our hope is going to become a franchise, because we want to have other ideas that are on paper for completely different games in the Father Brown Investigations series come out down the line. So this is not just a one-off opportunity. You might be buying one game today, but you're making an investment in the possibility of having a whole Father Brown game library down the road. So that's kind of a neat, exciting thing. And from the user's perspective, from the player's perspective, it just provides, we all know about coffee table books. Here's a game that you can set on your coffee table, and everybody that walks in your front door is going to ask you about that. What's that? And it gives you the opportunity to share Chesterton with them. And that's really what we're all about at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool. I didn't know about the two different versions. That's so good. And yeah, I mean, I just want to reemphasize that we need to support endeavors like this, small localist endeavors like this, because I mean, as everyone says in the news, everyone agrees somehow that small businesses are the backbone of our society. That's like the thing that we hear over and over again. And this is a great way to, actually put your beliefs in action. And this, because this is a perfect example of something that should be made. A Father Brown card game. I mean, I wish I had come up with that. Yeah. But
and if I may add,
yes, absolutely.
I come from a very, very small nation of Croatia, only 4 million of inhabitants. And just as we know, Chesterton was very fond of small nations who are very brave and who are persistent and who just doesn't give up. And as I like to say, that this is our Notting Hill, and we are not going to back off and let this opportunity just not come to life.
That's great. That's great. Well, I was so nice to meet you, Nikola, and I look forward to talking to you again. I look forward to talking to you again, Joe. I'm sure we'll have you on our podcast fairly soon. And thanks so much, guys. Yeah. So everyone, again, I'll put the links in the description, but if you go to fatherbrownGame.com, you can find all the information you want there and a place to donate. And yeah, that's all I have for now. Happy New Year again. And until next time, help us to make uncommon sense more common.